How are we doing?
Hi.
No, all right. How are we doing? I think this might be the first time in my life I've wearing a tie and a hoodie at the same time, but maybe it's something we can start off as a bit of a trend. So great to see you all. I feel like I've got this great privilege of spending time with you, where every time we meet, like I just get like a huge download of awesome sales leadership and salesperson advice and insights and stuff like that. So thank you very, very much. Should we get straight into it? Should we do some introductions? I'm just going to go by how you are on my screen. So I'm going to do alphabetical, but let's go with Lucy. You're first up. How are you doing, Lucy?
I'm good. I'm very good, thank you. A bit chilly, a bit cold today, a bit miserable, isn't it? Miserable and raining.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's not raining in the garden because I've just been out there. I heard that some people thought we weren't live, so I want to keep making the point we're live. So Lucy, why don't you give a brief introduction about yourself to the audience here? And yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Sure. So I'm Lucy Williams-Jones. I lead the EMEA Majors team for Datadog. I've been at Datadog about 4 years, but ahead of that, I have been in tech for about 23 years. 24 years this year. So super excited. I moved into leadership around 2.5 years ago. So I'm really excited to share kind of why I'm passionate around women in leadership in general, because I was the immortal IC for many, many years.
Yes. How many years in a row are we talking President's Club, Lucy?
Wow, maybe 23 now.
Yeah,
it just counts. Yeah, 23.
That's pretty impressive. Lucy, I don't know if I've ever told this story, but the first time you and I ever spoke to each other was when I was researching the book and I was looking for people, to talk to who had like great medic experience. And I was so intimidated because I could see on your profile, like President's Club. And I was just like, oh my God, this person's like a super elite person. And so, but you couldn't have been nicer and more helpful. So thank you very, very much for that.
You're welcome.
Good stuff. Hey, Penny, how are you doing?
Hi, Andy. I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you. Why don't you give everyone a quick introduction and how you came into this wonderful world of sales and sales leadership?
Yeah, so I, a bit like Lucy, have been in sales for a while, so 27 years, a bit more, and kind of 3 parts really to sell. I work at SUSE, by the way. I'm COO of Enterprise Container Solutions at a wonderful company called SUSE, which is run by a female CEO, which is fantastic. I was in 3 parts really. I was a bit like Lucy, an individual contributor for a large part of my career. So started briefly as an SDR and then went into an AE. And I loved that actually, because as an AE, it kind of gave me the flexibility that I wanted and to have at that point. I didn't really want to go into management. I actually had 2 children during that period. So got to enjoy the flexibility and the salary it afforded me, which was nice. And then went into, slightly reluctantly at first, into frontline management. Partly because I thought I wouldn't have as much flexibility, but actually that was quite an interesting journey for me, was moving from an individual contributor to a leadership role and understanding that's where diversity became really important, and understanding that diversity of how you sell is different. So what worked for me wasn't necessarily right for everyone. So that was kind of a transition period for me, understanding making lots of different people work and be successful, not just myself. And now more recently I'm into senior leadership and strategy. So that's been quite interesting the last 5 to 6 years. And again, another journey, because we're looking at how people buy is different and has changed. And sales isn't just about selling, right? It's about marketing, customer success, product. And that's been really exciting for me. And I love that. So challenged me, and that's really lent itself well into the role I have now at SUSE.
Love that. Do you still manage to get, what I would say, your hands on the tools a lot, getting in, rolling your sleeves up and getting involved in deals day to day?
Well, yes, I try not. I think much to the annoyance probably of the AEs, so I try not to do it too much, but certainly the frontline managers are doing that. Yes, for sure.
Love that. Good stuff. Thank you so much, Penny. Marina, how are you doing?
Hey, Andy, good. Thanks for having us again. I'm pleased that everyone got the memo and we're all in black polo necks, Steve Jobs-esque.
Yes, yeah, brilliant. So why don't you tell us how you got into this wonderful world of sales and then move into sales leadership as well?
Yes, of course. So I don't have as impressive track record as both Penny and Lucy, but I have been in sales since I left university. I've done all sorts of jobs, started my career in BDR, moved through commercial, enterprise, large enterprise, and then majors as an individual contributor. And similarly to Penny, made the decision almost reluctantly at the first part to move into leadership, where I've been for about 2.5 years now. So I currently run our majors team here as well at Zscaler. So yeah, that's me.
Good stuff. Oh, I love that. And what's the, like, say, to question back to you, Marina, what's the one thing that you wish you could have told, you yourself when you were sort of forging your way into sales leadership? What's the one thing you know now that you'd love to have told a younger version of you?
That it's not going to be an overnight success, that's for sure. And you are not the only person controlling your destiny anymore. But I think that's part of the journey, right? And I think probably the most important thing that I've learned is leadership is all about being creating an environment where you build trust, and having that in your team is essential for any kind of success.
Yeah, I love that. Do you find that, like, trust is one of those things in sales that's it's really important? Obviously, the customers trust us, but our teams as leaders, I think that's a really, really important thing. How important do you feel it is as a sales leader to have kind of the experience, the track record you have had as an individual contributor? How much do you think that plays into the part of your team kind of trusting you, that you've kind of walked the walk before?
Well, I think you have to have credibility, right, to gain a following, right, which effectively is what leadership's about. It's about inspiring people to get in the boat with you, to drive a mission that everyone can get on board with. So personally, and I know Lucy and I discussed this at length before, one of the things that we feel very lucky with in our jobs, and Lucy, I don't want to speak for you, is, we've done it before, we've done the deals, so we can speak from experience. We know how difficult it is, and Penny is the same, right? I think to go back to your point on trust, I mean, that is like critical component, because if you don't have that, firstly, you never find out the truth about deals and you can't problem solve with your team. Secondly, you don't create an environment where your team feel like they are able to take risks. And if you don't take risks, you do what everyone else does and become bang average, right? So I think it's really important.
Yeah, I love that. What would you say, Lucy? What would you say to a younger Lucy looking to forge your way into your career as a sales leader?
I'd say do it again, a bit like Marina and Penny. We've all done the job, right? I joked that I was the immortal IC. I was right. I never wanted to go into leadership, and then I had an epiphany one night where I wanted to pay back what I'd learned from various leaders and teammates over the years. So I'd just say do it. I think it's such a great job, and I think it's such a great career. In the US, there's university courses for this, and there's not right now in the UK, I don't think, the last time I checked. But I think anyone that has got the drive, wants a bit of variety on their day-to-day, should definitely do it, because there's actually a place for diverse teams, and particularly women, in this industry.
Yeah, I love that. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, spot on. And then Penny, question to you. You said 20. Did you say 25 or 27 years? That seems impossible. But
I can't do over 2, but yeah, 27, showing my age a bit. Yeah. Yeah.
So if you can cast your mind back to young Penny, what would you say to her as she's trying to kind of get to where you are now?
Yeah, it's funny because people always ask that question, and I was thinking about it when you asked us to think about it. And moving into management, if I focused on that, but I think 3 bits. One would be courage in my convictions. When I first went into management, I remember, invariably I was the only woman. I think I was the only woman in the room, and I'd be a new manager, and I think, gosh, maybe, I'd look at something from a new perspective and think, okay, maybe I don't have as much experience as everyone else, so I won't say what I really think. And I think having courage in your convictions is really important, because actually your fresh approach and fresh ideas are really valuable to the rest of the management team. And I think that comes into the next piece, which is confidence. So how do you deliver when you have those ideas with confidence? Everyone around me seemed so confident in knowing everything, when invariably they really didn't. And I think having that confidence in how I delivered ideas, I would say to myself I should have done. And I think the third thing is I probably didn't realize how important it was to get either a mentor or an exec sponsor quite early on in my leadership journey, because getting that exec sponsor to back you and some guidance to sort of get ideas off of was actually really valuable. And it's something that I continue to do in my career that I found really important.
I love that, and I'm going to push you on that a little one, because that's really interesting to me, particularly around the topic we have as one of the chapters in the books around mentors. Do you find that if you reflect on the best mentors you've had in your career, and I know Lucy and Marina mentioned sometimes they call them like career champions as well, when you look back on those people that have supported you so well, do you find that they tend to be organic, like they're people that have crossed your path and have helped, or do you feel like people listening to this, if they're trying to follow in your footsteps, they have to be more proactive to go and find those people? Who are the best mentors for you? What's the best path?
I think you have to be proactive, right? So some have fallen across my path, but you absolutely have to be proactive, because really, when you're a mentee, it's really your job to help the mentor. It's got to be a two-way street, right? And if you're going to take some time out of someone's very busy schedule, invariably they're good at what they do, there's got to be something in it for them, and you've got to be really clear on how you need the help, and be respectful of their time. So I think being proactive, showing that you're really excited. I mean, that's part of being sales, right? In sales is being proactive, finding the right person, the right fit, and giving them a compelling reason why they should work with you. So yes, I've been proactive in my past.
Yeah, I love that. What do you think, Lucy? Do your champions? I've heard you talk about career champions before. If you think about those that have really helped you the most, what sort of springs to mind? Is it you being proactive, or is there a blend of people crossing your path as well?
I think there is a blend. I think that if you put yourself out there and are driven, and you have you're showing strong skill sets, people will kind of probably attach to you to want to help you and be better. I've definitely had some of those in my time where, if you excel, you get your head above the parapet, and then you're getting, that recognition, and that helps. But again, seeking out mentors, we spoke about it at length, and it has to be, as Penny said, a two-way street. I've had some young women recently, say mentorship's great. I'd love to get an hour of your time, and you spend that time, and then it ceases. There's nothing back. And I don't mind chasing. I'm a salesperson after all. But when it comes to like mentors, I think it has to be a two-way street. And I'm not just going to give information to then receive nothing back. It has to be that mutual, fair exchange of value, I think. But I think it's definitely a blend. And I think you should also have a blend of male and female mentors. I don't think just because I'm female that I should go automatically for a female mentor the whole time. And I've actually got a really nice blend of career champions who are both male and female.
I think one of the things you said there, and Penny mentioned it as well, is like that idea that, Penny mentioned is like the by nature, somebody you wanted to be a mentor is, just by nature, by the virtue of them, what you want them to be a mentor is going to be more senior to you, more experienced than you are, someone you look up to. And those types of people, as Penny said, are busier. They've got sort of more responsibility and all this sort of stuff. And what you're saying there, Lucy, is the importance of kind of treating that person. And I think this is, this is obviously MEDDICON, and I want to bring it back to Medic, but like the idea of kind of treating that person how we would kind of somebody senior that we're engaging with, and I'm kind of taking into account, what's in it for them, and what's how can we approach these engagements with that person's kind of time in mind. What do you think, Marina?
Well, I agree with everything that's been said. I would say one thing that I would add to it is I think this idea of like mentorship in some circumstances has become a little bit of a tick box exercise, right? Everyone wants to say, oh, great, I've got a career mentor or whatever it is. But I think I would advise people to look for unofficial channels of mentoring, right? Where you have a gap, for example, in the same way Medic in a deal, right? Where you have a gap in your development and you see someone in an organization or out of the organization that does that really brilliantly. There is no harm in, it doesn't have to be a weekly call that, you take for an hour. If you go to, Penny and you say, I saw you doing this. What you did was amazing. I'd really like to understand how you structure things in that way so that I can learn from you. And it's almost this like unofficial mentorship that actually for that person, they're giving back and they know exactly what the outcome of it is, which is, from their perspective, they feel good about that. Because if it's not fruitful for both parties, it's just not going to work. And then to go back to what Lucy said, I agree. Like for me, I think we talked about this. We've been together a little bit recently. We talked about the importance of this idea of like male allyship. And I think in mentoring, this is like, even more important, right? It's different perspectives. You know, we're talking today about diversity and the importance of, you know, widening our horizons and thinking and stuff. And I think having different perspectives on your career and allies that are male, that's equally important, right? So you need to have advocates all over the place.
I love that. And actually, you know, just in the break there, when I was waiting for Pim to join me, I was looking at the post that you kindly put, Lucy, about the book on LinkedIn. The first thing I did was look at the comments, look at the likes. And one of the things I noticed was there were so many men that were liking that post, right? Which is exactly what we want. We want to write a book for everybody. And so we know there's, you know, lots and lots of the vast majority of men want to be allies. What's the way in which, going back to you, Penny, what's the way in which you would advise, you know, how can we help support men to be allies, everyone to be allies? What would be your advice for that?
Well, I mean, I'm lucky, and for anyone on SUSE who's here, including my boss, I've got a great boss, male boss and male colleagues. Actually, they're joking aside, they are great, and they have my back, but we have each other's backs, right? And it comes down to that trust, etc. But if I think about advice I would give to male counterparts, you know, on this particular call, I think, you know, there's a few things. One, lead by example, right? I think you can be an active participant in diversity initiatives. And offering mentorship that we've talked about to women in your teams or other people's teams that you think where you can help. Be proactive in that. I think also as a manager, you can coach your teams in unconscious bias, because I'll be honest, a lot of behavior is not intended, is not intentional, and not even known. And so getting that coaching piece into your managers or your team or peers is really important. We did this in one of my last companies, and I didn't even know about my own unconscious biases that I was aware of. And then I think it's also about not being a silent bystander. If you do see behavior, you have to call it out, whether that be on the side, and that's part of the coaching, or whether you have to call it out in real time. And then I think it's also being quite proactive. So if you are a male leader of a team, then take counsel from your female members in your team. Listen to them, ask them what they like and what's working for them, what's not. I think it's also, you can seek out support externally. What other female sales leaders do you know in your peer group? What are they doing that's successful? What's working for them? What can you pull across into your own team? And then, of course, partner with HR, right? Because we don't know what we're doing unintentionally. What are you doing in your JDs that you might not be conscious about, that's not attracting the talent? How are you coaching your management styles to make sure you're then retaining the talent and growing it and nurturing within your own organization? So I think, it's being proactive in learning, active, and lead by example.
I love that. That's the soundbite there for sure. Lucy, you mentioned before the point about some of your career champions and mentors have been men as well. What was it about those men that kind of, you know, that people could take from to, if someone's out there listening thinking, I want to be an ally, what can I do? What could they do to be like those champions you had?
Yeah, sure. And I think Penny hit it on the head, right? You've got to lead by example. A lot of the career champions I've had over the years will always raise their hands to offer to get involved with like events and panels. And what you find is that as soon as some allies are doing that, male allies, you find that others follow, for starters, because they're like, well, he's doing it, so why shouldn't I? So that's one thing. The second piece, like lead by example, I think your actions have to sync with your words. A lot of the allies that I've been or had the pleasure of working with who've like forged really successful, diverse sales team have created a culture of credit and equal measures. So when they're looking at maybe metrics, or they're looking at promotions, that they are looking at every person, and they're not specifically looking at, oh, that person will fit really well, but that person wouldn't. So that's really important. And then the other one that I thought about when we were speaking about this is, you know, when you're in a meeting, and I think we've all been there, and I'm sure lots of other people have, and being the only one, being the only female, if someone says, oh, you'll take the notes, won't you? Looking directly at the female in the room, someone calling that out and saying, no, actually, just you take the notes. Or it could be the fact that, you know, we've got a meeting and someone said, oh, she won't be able to do that because she's got childcare, or she wouldn't fit in that culture. But people are forgetting that actually the female into the team might be the culture add that's needed. So I think you have to make sure that A, you cultivate a culture of credit and equal measures. And secondly, strong allies, from my perspective, are like calling out bad behavior it's not bad. It's like naughty behaviour, but they're calling out when things shouldn't be maybe said in that way. Is what I would say.
I love that. Marina, you brought this really, really great point up about allyship, and I want to just make sure I come back to you, because I'd imagine you probably have some really good input here as well.
They've done too good a job, Andy. I mean, I don't have too much to add. I think that, particularly men in very senior leaderships should use that as a platform to amplify the women in their team's voices, and use it to make a difference and encourage people to make change, and influence other people to promote women in their team's ideas. But I have nothing to add. They did too good a job.
Okay, good stuff. Well, just before we move from the mentorship thing, I think there's some really good questions that have been asked by some people in the audience. So the first one comes from Shamik, and I hope I'm saying that right. We'll put it up on stage. Hopefully this should come up on stage. So how do we get past the stereotype of mentorship being a tick box exercise? Do we have any examples of that? What do you think, Penny?
Just found my mute button there. I think there are struggles with that, right? So I think it has to come back to, again, some of the leadership stepping in and being active, right? So there will be initiatives that take place in quite rightly so in the organisation, right? So if I think about some of the organisations I've worked in, you have to be proactive in pushing this forward. But then it really comes down to the leaders doing the do, and if I think about our leadership team and the conversations we're having at the moment, it's down at our particular ECS team that we're acting on this. It's not an HR initiative, and it's something that we have prioritised as one of the MBOs and levers within our org. So it's really about the action and ownership and taking it outside of just an HR diversity initiative into the actual DNA of the business.
I love that. We'll jump straight into another question because they're coming in thick and fast. This one's from Josie. Hey, Josie, hope you're well. Do you have examples of value that a mentee can provide to a mentor? I love this one because it's like, we kind of touched on that. There's got to be something in it for the person. So I'd love to hear from you, Marina. What if someone's watching this now thinking, I like the look of that Marina. She's got really smart things to say. I'd love her to be a mentor for me one day. What sort of things, should they be thinking about? What's in it for you?
That's a great question. So I think, first of all, if you are a mentee, create structure and think about, do the research before to think about what you want to get out of the session, right? Not indifferent to how you'd start a meeting with a customer. I think from my perspective, there is so much to learn from other people, independent of what role they're in which company, right? And I think what I personally can get out of mentoring people is ideas, energy, like a bit of an idea of what's going on in other areas of the business. I think that's always really important. And also, like, for me, it's the opportunity to help someone. This kind of like goes back into the ally conversation. I was like, when I was early in my career, I was hugely supported, mentored, helped by loads of different people. And I think there is just if you've been lucky enough to have that, there is always just a willingness to want to do the same for other people.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? How there are, I can think about, I know some of the people that have helped you in your career, and there's almost like a number of people I know as well that are very successful women who have followed that same path with the same leaders you have as well. And I think there's no coincidence there that these things are happening. So it's almost like we want to kind of encourage it where we can. Okay, this is a good question. Tony here. Good examples of tackling subconscious bias. Lucy, you mentioned this, and how do we kind of tackle this? Because I like this question, Tony. How do we tackle this from a place of, we're just trying to be positive here. We're not trying to be, we're just trying to keep everyone moving forward. How do we do that, Lucy? It's challenging.
I think you've got to be bold. I think there's ways that you can call it out. If anyone's read the Chimp Paradox about the monkey, you don't want to be the monkey. You want to have a little bit of a filter that I sometimes struggle with, but have a filter that will enable you to call it out in a productive way. So if someone says, oh, you'll take the notes, or, oh, you'll do the deck, just say, well, actually, this is a team effort. We're all going to do it. Or why don't we take it in turns, and try and create that culture where it's a turn taking rather than it always looking to the female to do the more admin heavy tasks. It's about, ordering snacks for the office or tidying an office up, isn't it? Over the years, I've been in some right offices, and it always comes down to if someone's like importance coming in, or we must tidy the office, and then everyone automatically looks to the females to go and tidy the office. So just because, it's awful. Just because those, I guess, needs are there, spread the load. We're all equal. We should all be able to tidy an office or take notes. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in the jobs we're in today. But it's about sharing the load, I think.
Actually, on that, I just want to say, it reminds me when I worked at what was Facebook Meta, the very senior VP always made it a deal when he would come in, he would make sure that he would get the coffees and that he would try and do some of those roles as a very intentional thing, actually. But it was a subtle but intentional thing.
Yeah, I've been in a meeting before. This was going back about 15 years ago. So we're talking a long time before, where someone thought I was just bringing the coffees in. So I walked into a meeting and they're like, "Oh, you can go now." I was like, "It's my meeting. Come on." So I think just be a little bit intentional, a little bit
Yeah, well, that anecdote there, Lucy, just proves why we need to have more women in sales. Marina, what would you say what would you say are the best things about why should anyone who's watching this, who's perhaps thinking about a career in sales, their own, why should they jump in for a career in sales? What do you think is the best things about it?
Well, I think it's one of the best jobs out there, particularly for women, right? I think it provides a huge opportunity to earn your own money, for example, which is the first path, in my view, to independence, total independence, right? And you can decide what you do from there. I think that we offer, as women, we're very fortunate in the fact that we offer other skills that men don't necessarily. Well, I'm very biased now. I don't know where this is going. I'm going to say it anyway because we're on an all-female panel. In my opinion, we, as women, we probably are able to build better relationships faster. I think we have better resilience because of all the things around unconscious bias that we've already discussed. And I also think that we approach sales with a slightly different perspective. And I think when our customers, our clients see us, it's kind of a breath of fresh air, right? Because the historic salesperson, car salesman, hasn't always had the best rep. And so when they are, fronted with hopefully one of us three, they're like, well, this is going to be a different kind of engagement. And maybe I'm going to enjoy it a bit more. So I think it's an amazing job. And also it's not a 9 till 5 job. And I think that's really important. You get out of it what you put into it. And I'll leave Penny, actually. Obviously Penny's got kids, so I'll leave her to talk a little bit around that. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think I told you this story, but sharing for everyone else, we bought a lot of technology last year, and I think we equated that we had something like 70 odd meetings with different AEs, and I think there was over 50 vendors that we engaged with. And when I say we bought tech, I'm not just talking like Zoom and things like that. I'm talking about, we had sales cycles, and there was only one engagement we had where I thought that the salesperson did a really great job, and it was I think the only female salesperson we engaged with last year. And then this year we also bought a new financial planning system, and the salesperson absolutely crushed it. And again, was a woman. So I have like a very sort of, we talk about biases. I have recency bias, but we're talking about over 50 different salespeople. I know, and the data's pretty strong to say that women make great salespeople. What do you think, Penny? Why is it great to be a woman in sales, and why should people want to do it?
So, well, I'm going to first of all say why organisations it's good for, and then I'll say why personally I think. So from an organisational perspective, I think, Marina touched on it. Many women tend to have some really good attributes and characteristics that lend themselves well to being a successful and good seller. And empathy, good listening, strong communication are all really, really important factors. And actually, I think, I was reading an article, and Forbes was saying that customers are 70% more likely to buy if they think they've been heard. And we've also talked about trust as well. So empathy, good listening, critical if we think about that ability. So women have these great skills that can work. And then when we think about why it's great for women, for me personally, I mean, I wanted to do a job that I enjoyed, right? And you may be getting the vibe that I like to talk. Emma, my colleague, who I can see in the chat, will say I like to use words, right? So I enjoy connecting with people. I like speaking to people. I love solving customer problems, and I like to deliver impact, right? Who doesn't? And sales is really very performance related. So I really love the instant gratification and recognition that I got from sales. Plus, you know, the salary is pretty good. It's a big bonus. So for me, it was really good. And being a female in sales as well meant I was a bit different, actually. And I had ability to connect with different types of customers that some others couldn't. Actually, it comes back to not being female, just diversity in general, right? Our audiences are diverse. Our customers are diverse. We need to reflect that internally so we can better connect. But in terms of, for me as a mother, so I stayed in sales for about 10 plus years, had 2 children. I actually found it incredibly flexible. Because ultimately, if you're bringing your numbers in, it's not 9 to 5, right? You can move around that, and so you should. And particularly with working from home now, there is flexibility. I do remember, though, coming into my first maternity leave and being really nervous, though, because I thought, well, first, am I going to lose my quota? Like, I'm taking time out. And then the other thing was, like, will I be able to relate to my customers when I come back? Because they're still young. Maybe they won't have kids. Maybe I'll be irrelevant. And when I look back now in hindsight, I think, God, that was such a crazy thing to worry about, because actually as I grew and evolved, my customers did, and I had a way to relate with them where they often had children as well. So, and I hear that quite a lot when I think about women and when they drop off and out of the workforce. It's usually around the time they may or may not consider having children. So I want to say to those that are, you know, this is a good career and you can continue.
I like, you know, the thing there when you said that, you know, that self-awareness that you have to kind of consider, you know, am I going to be different? Am I going to be relevant? Like, there's just something that I think so many, you know, I imagine a lot of women listening to that would resonate with that. But I can't imagine a typical, you know, and we don't want to talk stereotypes, but a typical kind of guy coming back from paternity leave going, oh, you know, my customers are going to feel differently. So but I actually think that that's something that kind of self-awareness, that high EQ, the way we sort of consider how we have the impact we have on other people's emotions and things like that, is a real strength in sales. So even though you're showing it in a sort of like it had a negative impact on your sort of morale almost, the actual, that as a trait is actually probably something that makes you a very, very strong individual contributor and therefore future sales leader as well as you are now. So that's pretty cool. Lucy, what about you? You know, what's the thing you would tell somebody coming into sales? Why do female salespeople make such good salespeople?
Yeah, so I think why I think you should do it. I think it's a varied role. No 2 days are the same. So if you like a bit of variety, I think it's definitely the place to be. I also think that women and men have very different skill sets, and there's a lot of natural talents that women encompass that you can use, which will reward you, as Marina said, you know, financial independence, and have that extrinsic reward, but also that intrinsic reward of being like saying, actually, I am good enough to do this, and I can do that, and I have got a seat at the table. A couple of the things that sprung to mind when I was thinking like why women make good sellers would be like natural curiosity. Like there's that little bit of nosiness in everyone, right? We always want to know why, we always want to know when, and we always want to know who did it. Emotional intelligence and self-awareness, Anna, you just touched on that. But again, I think it's actually statistically correct that women do have a higher level of emotional intelligence and self-awareness, which can play really nicely into a sales process for both the customer and the company. We're really good at multitasking and crisis management, but also we can bring those empathetic viewpoints into like a sales process. And I think that's really important. The one thing we haven't got is lots of role models. So unless we get more female role models, the culture is never going to change. You know, role cultures will continue to exist and gender biased hiring will be there and it won't go away. So the only way that we can create more females in tech is to have more role models and more females coming up into it, which I guess is kind of the reason why we're all doing this today, right? Because we're all passionate about technology, but particularly females in tech.
I mean, that plays into Emma. I think it's in your team, Penny, if I heard rightly. In the chat, they're saying that both of her daughters, 25 and 21, have gone into sales. I mean, I don't know about you, but like for me, my mum was a massive role model for me. So I'm sure it's the same for other people. So that's exactly what you're talking about there, Lucy. Someone that's, you know, a role model following them in, and it just shows how important it is. That it doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to be that again, not looking for a second President's Club winner multiple times, but it can just be someone that you kind of look up to as well, whether it's brilliant. So we're almost up on time, but we did announce the book earlier. I am incredibly excited about it. I just can't wait to kind of get the momentum going and get it into people's hands. I'd love just to do a quick fire round about, like, you know, when we kind of brainstormed this idea, and for those that don't know, the idea actually came up from a panel that I think we're all on together, talking about going from being an individual contributor to a sales leader. And I think, Lucy, you made this great comment that there's not really any advice for people doing that jump. And I also thought we just sort of thought about something like, well, there's not even anything for female sales leaders or people that want to be female sales leaders. And we know, like I said in the intro, how important it is for people to be able to see themselves in the job they want to do. So I'd love just to go around. Let's start with you, Marina. What was it that kind of jumped out at you, this opportunity? Because, you know, I'm going to this is no small feat. All of you three, how busy you are, the roles you have, the responsibilities you have, giving up the time you have for this project, and it's a not-for-profit project, of course, as well, is incredible. So what was it that Marina, that made you kindly give up so much time for this?
Well, I think if the outcome we can drive from doing this book is to get more people and more women to be inspired to go into sales, and I think we have all done a good job. I think for me personally and selfishly, it's an incredible opportunity to spend more time with Lucy, Penny, and you, of course, Andy, and like learn from the best in the industry and really start sharing ideas. So yeah.
I love that. Yeah. What about you? What do you think, Lucy?
For me, of course, it's about getting more females and women in tech. You know, statistically, again, a lot of females go into STEM subjects, but they never do anything with them because they go off and do other jobs. So for that, but actually, it's about more awareness to others, males in the industry, that females can be strong leaders and females can contribute to being really strong team members, and try and remove some of that gender bias hiring. I would say for me, it's like getting our allies and future allies to understand that having a team of diverse individuals actually will help them grow their business. So for me, it's women and more of them, but also awareness that we are good enough to be in the seat.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Penny, see us out, Penny. Give us what was it that inspired you to get involved?
Well, I mean, I really do feel passionately about having more women in sales and staying in sales and growing and being successful. And everything that Lucy said is true, and Marina. And what I love about actually working with the three of us and us having spent time together is we have very different experiences and perspectives. Part of mine is really about also thinking about how we can retain female talent as well and see that grow into leadership. Because the more you have in women in leadership, the more women will come into sales naturally. And I do see a drop off, and particularly thinking about when people, if they decide to have children and they do that, how do we make sure that we're retaining at the time? There is so much talent out there that we're not tapping into. Shame on us and our businesses to not find a way to do that. So if we can do anything to help educate, give the confidence to women to feel they want to do this job, that they can come back to work, that they can be successful, but also help educate people around to know that there is benefit in this, then I'm in. So yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for inviting me into this.
No, thank you so much. So on that note, thank you all three of you so much, not just for this panel, but for, I think, the industry changing book that you folks have kindly invested so much time, so much expertise in that will be coming out this summer, The Female Sales Leader. I couldn't be more excited about it. So thank you all so much for this. So everyone watching, the comments have been wonderful, some great questions. Thank you all so much for investing your time in such an important topic. The team here will be doing sound bites. This, of course, will be available on demand. We'll also get the writing team to write up some of the really good sound bites here. But if you really want to read the best insights you can on this topic, it's going to be getting on that wait list for that book. So I'm sure one of the team will drop the link in there. And yeah, thank you so much, all three of you again. And I can't wait to have this party when we launch this book. We're going to have a party for sure.
We have to have a party.
We will.